Om Sri Ramakrishna Samartha Sadguru Devaya Namaha.
Namaste everyone. I'm glad you have made it to the session today. When we started this course, we said we will try to do one session per month, and we are trying to stick to that schedule in spite of a few ups and downs and demands on our schedules and things like that. But I'm glad that we are together and we are going to try and have our July session today. So once again, welcome to you all, and let us invoke the blessings of Mother and Sri Aurobindo on our session today. Today, we are taking up the 5th chapter of the book, The Emergence of the Psychic Being. We have gone through several sessions. Our session numbers are more than 5, but we will go ahead and take up these chapters. When we started this series, we did have an overview session right in the beginning. So a lot of themes were covered there, and in each chapter, what Sri A.S. Dalalji does is he takes up one aspect and goes deeper into it. So even though it may seem like, yes, I've heard this before, the truth is in each chapter, he's successively building step by step. So let us dive into the 5th chapter, which actually is the emergence of the psychic being, almost the title of the book itself. As a recap, I'll quickly touch upon a dozen points or so that we have already covered. Psychic being is what we call antaratma in the colloquial terminology. The idea is that this is the soul, this is the inmost soul. That is what the psychic being is. And we are trying to discover how to be in touch with the psychic being. And we are also trying to understand the mechanisms by which the soul can come forward. These are the mechanisms, okay, that we are touching upon as a course of the study of this book. The psychic being is a projection of the divine consciousness into matter, to awaken matter out of its inertia so that it takes the path back to the divine. And when they say the psychic being is a projection of divine consciousness into matter, the matter we refer to here not only includes the Prakriti outside, but also this matter. So it is a spark of the divine embedded inside of us. The psychic being is in the heart center, in the middle of the chest, but deep behind. We will recall how the center of the chest is the location of 3 important elements of our being. The emotional being is located there. The ego center is located there. But deeper than both of these is the psychic being. In fact, as we go through chapter by chapter, and if you take up these practices seriously, and you try to repeat them week after week, month after month, you may find that you as a personality may have developed a greater emotional sensitivity. You may get hurt more easily. You may get deeper sensations more easily, or they manifest unexpectedly, which was not the case perhaps a few months ago. It is a journey of psychic being that is taking you through the emotional layers of your being. This is This course is not just about a mental construction of what psychic being is. It is a journey through these meditations of traveling through our layers. And some of you may feel more sensitive, more hurt in particular, because positive emotions we don't realize as much as we realize the negative emotions or become sensitive to it. So we have to cross that emotional layers and go deeper. There is the ego center, and then we go to the psychic being. In most, the psychic being is entirely veiled and overshadowed by thoughts, emotions, and body identification. We will deal more with that today. Last class, we talked about three elements: individualization, interiorization, and concentration. Individualization is that the aim of the psychic being is to form an individualized, personalized being around the divine center. It is unique, it is different. It is individual in the sense that it is not any longer subjected to the flow of emotions and thoughts and negativity or positive, the whole universal emotions and all of that. In those currents of flow, we talked about how we remain an individual, and slowly the glow of the divine appears in this current and flow or river of universal energies. Interiorization, the idea is to go deeper and deeper, layer by layer, into our being, interiorize ourselves so that we arrive at a poise of consciousness where we are identified with the divine, which is the divine spark, which is the psychic spark. So there is the individualization, there is interiorization, and there is a concentration. The development of the conscious psychic personality, one should, while concentrating towards it, aspire to know it, feel it, open oneself to receive its influence, and take great care each time that one receives an indication from it to follow it very scrupulously, to live in a great aspiration to take care to become inwardly calm. So this is not the mental concentration that Mother is referring to here. She is referring to the fact that throughout the day, we are concentrated on our efforts to find the psychic being, to go inside, to remain calm, to remain in our inner being. These are the things that we are talking about. So, coming to this chapter and the themes in this chapter, I will touch upon, I've rearranged the sequence as we discussed earlier, but we will be covering all the important themes. So, when we talk about the emergence of the psychic being, there are certain important conditions or important maybe attributes that we should develop. Aspiration, constant and sincere, the will to turn to the divine. These two are alone the best means to bring forward the psychic. A constant and sincere aspiration and the will to turn towards the divine. We have to constantly have that will. In fact, among the faculties that humans have, particularly for a spiritual aspirant, the most important quality that needs to be repetitively worked upon and developed and strengthened is our willpower. We have gone into detail on this, but it is important to remind ourselves that willpower is perhaps the most important and least recognized tools in our toolkit. Devotion and a more and more complete inner consecration are the best way to open the psychic. Bhakti, looking into the eyes of the photograph of the mother, making an inner connection. Gaze into the eyes of the gurus. Develop the devotion as a day-to-day practice, a deepening of devotion. In fact, MP Panditji says that consecration is nothing but surrender worked out in detail. In everything that we do we have the feeling of surrender, offering, devotion? It may be the most mundane thing, maybe sewing, maybe cooking, taking the child for a walk. Is that inner contact maintained? And in that moment, are we able to offer that moment to the divine? It takes practice. See, one of the things about spirituality is when you actually discuss it with people, they say, oh my God, it is so hard. Oh my God, it is so difficult. Oh my God, it takes so much time. I mean, let us do the basics again, right? Many of us have taken up a certain line of education and completed that line of education and built our career on that education, correct? That is the natural flow. How long did we go through that process of education? Have we ever asked ourselves that question? We spend close to 21 years of our life getting educated. For what? To develop skills of a very mundane field outside, one field. And then build our life to earn money and all of that. Just that one process is built on a foundation of 21 years, or at least 16 years if you discount the first 5 years, 16 to, and if you do masters and PhD, another 4-5 years. So mota, we have spent 15 to 20 years gaining knowledge about one outward aspect of life so that we could build the rest of our life on it. Now, here, discovering the divine means arriving at the most profound knowledge available to humanity. The secret of human birth. That is what we are seeking. So for that, if it takes 5 years or 10 years, is it really a big deal? Because we are gaining the supreme knowledge, the knowledge which teaches you all the knowledge in the Upanishadic sense. Knowing that, you know everything. For that knowledge, if we have to spend 5 years or 10 years, let us make that effort and commitment. Let us realize how important it is. And then one more thing, purity is one of the most important things for the opening of the psychic being. Purity means we have to go deeper. We know our emotions, we know our thoughts, we know which are mundane, we know which are spiritual, we understand which are of a higher order, which are of a lower order. We know which are coming from the purer part of ourselves, the positive traits, gratitude, generosity, goodwill for everybody, forgiveness, all of those things. In Buddhism, Maitri, Karuna, Mudita, Upeksha. And then we have the lower attributes, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Mada, Moha, Matsarya, and all their children. Purifying ourselves from the lower attributes and inculcating the higher attributes. So these 4 are mentioned in this chapter. There are others also: aspiration, the will to turn to the divine, devotion and inner consecration, and purity. It's the kind of the background we are laying out before we deep dive into the chapter. And then Sri Aurobindo talks about the emergence. It is emergence of the psychic being is not a one-day process. For that matter, firm and robust establishment of any spiritual attribute is not a one-day affair. It goes to the crescendo, then the lower nature pulls us back. We think we have lost it. Again, we work towards it. Now you go to a higher peak. So Sri Aurobindo says, all must be transitional. Transitional is changing or temporary. All must be transitional until true harmonization is achieved by finding our real center. For the true central being is the soul, and this being stands back. Remember this phrase, it's going to come back again and again today. This being stands back. It is only the secret witness. So the real soul is something that stands back. So what is in the front? Normally it is our emotions, thoughts, and all the associated orchestra. It stands back as a secret witness. That is our true soul. Further, Sri Aurobindo gives another example. He says, it is like a constitutional ruler who allows his ministers to rule for him, delegates to them his empire, and silently assents to their decisions. So we have the emotions, the energies, the thoughts, the difficulties, all of these other superficial surface being that is actually driving our life. The soul is giving sometimes its assent. When they are capable of receiving its guidance, then they are able to benefit. Otherwise, the king is in the screened chamber and the ministers are running the show. When does this change? When the psychic entity is strong enough for the inner entity to impose itself, then the soul can come forward and control the nature. It is by coming forward of this true monarch, king, basically monarch means. It is by coming forward of this true monarch and taking up of the reins of the government that there can take place the real harmonization of our being and our life. Why does he call this harmonization? Why does he place this emphasis on harmonization? Because somewhere else, Sri Aurobindo says, harmony is the key to our existence. All problems of existence are essentially problems of harmony. He says that in Life Divine and in Synthesis. Harmony of what? Harmony of our inner nature. We are man, a multiple personality. Depending on the circumstances, depending on the situations, our energies and our emotions and our thought processes are centralized in different parts of our being. But those parts of the being are not in harmony with each other. Sometimes we get up from a wonderful meditation, within 2 hours, we are in a very low consciousness state because somebody said something. Sometimes days can pass, particularly for people who go through depression, days can pass before the soul can come forward and help them. So Sri Aurobindo says that our job is right now to harmonize all of this. How do we harmonize all of this? When the soul can come forward and control the nature. Remember this phrase, we will come back to it again. It is difficult for man's mind to distinguish entirely the soul. He cannot distinguish it from the mental and vital formation in which the soul makes its appearance. What does he mean by this? Right now, the king is inside and he is giving directions. But we in our normal consciousness cannot receive his directions because the mind and emotions are so impure, so unstable. Even the direction comes through the mind. So we don't have the capacity to distinguish the thought that is coming, the light that is coming from a higher source, and a thought that is emanating purely from the mental level. Because how does the soul communicate with us and make us work? It has to work through the mind and the emotional being. Somewhere you get an inspiration, somewhere you get an inspiring thought. But that thought will not come with a drumbeat saying, here comes Maharaj, and his order is to do. No, it just comes as a casual thought, and we can very well miss it. It is difficult for the man's mind to distinguish entirely the soul from the mental formation and the vital formation through which the soul makes its appearance. But that is only so long as the emergence is not complete, till the strength of the soul begins to manifest. So long, the movements are involved in the mind's movements. When there is a complete silence in the being, either a stillness of the whole being or a stillness behind, unaffected by the surface movements, then we can become aware of the self, the spiritual substance of our being. I must clarify that in this chapter, there are multiple terms and phrases used for our inner being. We talk about the psychic being itself, then he talks about the witness and Purusha consciousness, he talks about the spiritual substance. These are all gradations of refinement. Initially, it may just be a witness Purusha. As it gets more and more refined and the calm and peace establishes itself, the spiritual substance is increasing more. As we go into the deeper layer, we come to the psychic being. So don't be too worried about the terminology and verbology. Try to focus on what he's saying, the truth that he's pointing us towards. Now, when he talked about this witness, Sakshi Bhava, I have taken up a few phrases, a few paragraphs from Synthesis of Yoga. There are 3 beautiful chapters in Synthesis of Yoga. If you wish to remember or note down, please, in the Yoga of Divine Knowledge section of Synthesis of Yoga, Jnana Yoga section, essentially, there are 3 chapters with almost identical names. Once you find one, they're all next to each other. Release from subjection to the body, release from subjection to the heart and mind, and release from subjection to ego. If you can remember these, you can read these chapters in more detail. I will just point out what they're saying there. So in release, because now he starts with release from subjection to the body, because all of us, our first point of identity is body. Who am I? I am this body. Who is that person? That person is that body. Our consciousness is completely 99% embodied in the body. We can't think of ourselves as separate. So here, how does the witness consciousness mechanism work? Sri Aurobindo describes in Synthesis of Yoga, the Purusha, the soul that knows and commands, has got himself involved in the workings of his executive conscious force. That is the Prakriti. The Purusha has got entangled with the Prakriti. So he mistakes this physical working of it, which we call the body, for himself. He says body is just one for, it is the Prakriti. And the Purusha identifies himself with the body. So now he talks about separation. How do we separate? He says, we say to the mind, this is a working of the Prakriti. The body is only a working of the Prakriti. This is neither thyself nor myself. Stand back from it. Step back. Sakshi Bhava. We say to the mind, this is a working of the Prakriti. This is neither thyself nor myself. He's asking the mind to step back from the body. Stand back from it. We shall find, if we try, that the mind has this power of detachment and can stand back from the body. Know the mental Purusha as the upholder of the body, not in any way the body itself. So, as we step back from the body, we can go to multiple poises. The consciousness can be stationed at multiple levels. At the witness consciousness of the body, it becomes the Annamaya Purusha. At the separation, at the emotional level, it becomes Pranamaya Purusha. Later, here he is asking the mind to step back from the body. Later, he will ask us to step back from the mind. That is the Manomaya Purusha. Annamaya Purusha, the one who witnesses the body. Because body is called the Annamaya Kosha. Pranamaya Purusha, the witness to the emotions. These are all the same consciousness. When it takes different positions, we call different terms. It is not that, sir, where am I going to, how many x-rays do I need to find to go through these bodies? No, it is the same you. In your status as a witness to the body, you are the Annamaya Purusha. In your status to the emotions, you become the Pranamaya Purusha. In your status of watching the mind and its movements, you become the Manomaya Purusha. I urge you to try and stay to the end of this session today, because we will try to do meditation based on this theme today. Then we go back to the other chapters, release from mind and emotions. The ascending soul has to separate itself from the action of the life energy in the mind. This is stepping back from mind and emotions. It has to make the mind say, as the representative of the Purusha, I am not the life. The life is not the self of the Purusha. It is only a working and one working of the Prakriti. The mind then draws back from its emotions and becomes with these the observer or the witness. Therefore, the Purusha becomes also the master who wills, whose will it is to replace the wrong by right enjoyment of the psychic existence. What he wills, the nature executes. So there is a lot that is covered here. I'll just give you one small story and then we will proceed to understanding how this manifests in the day-to-day affairs. There was a Swamiji of the Ramakrishna order. Probably he was the head of the Ramakrishna order or one of the senior people there. He had a slight injury on one of his fingers. And the doctor came to treat him. Maybe the pus had to be removed or something had to be done. So he said, I'll give you anesthesia to the area, localized anesthesia. The Swamiji said, no, it is not necessary. You can go ahead and do it. So this doctor started cutting open, removing the pus and all of that infection and then rebandaging it. And the Swamiji was able to remain a complete witness. No anesthesia necessary. This is how one can step back. This is the degree to which one can step back. Then there was a disciple like me. When he had a problem and the doctor wanted to do it, he said, no, you can do it without anesthesia. And the first cut that happened, the disciple started jumping with pain and said, nahi. Kitabon ki baat kitabon mein rahegi. Aap anesthesia de do mere ko. So it is good to have this aspiration and work towards it. It may take some time, but it can manifest. The idea is to separate the Purusha from the Prakriti. Stand back, step back, witness consciousness. All of these are allowing us to become closer to the psychic being. Further, Sri Aurobindo says, the soul in itself contains all possible strength, but most of it is held behind the veil, and it is what comes forward in the nature that makes the difference. In some people, the psychic element is strong. In others, weak. In some people, the mind is the strongest part that governs. In others, it is the vital. But by the sadhana of the psychic being, the psychic being can be more and more brought forward till it is dominant and governs the rest of the being. So, it is by sadhana, it is not by mental knowledge. We discussed it earlier also. that mental knowledge should not be confused with realization. Familiarity should not be confused with realization. Oh, I attended the psychic being course. I can tell you where the psychic being is. I can tell you what its problems are. I can tell you how the king is screened. I can tell you how the Sakshi Purusha should. What is the use of all that knowledge? What is the use of all that knowledge? Unless that knowledge we put into practice every day in meditation, every day in sadhana. And when we do that, the mother says it can take a decade or 2 decades. Because why? Because right now we are all in this river of Prakriti and we are being carried away by that flood of Prakriti. 99.99% we live in Prakriti. We have to learn to remain as a witness consciousness both in the meditation time and while living life. That is the nutshell of all of this discussion. Then there was a phrase that was used here. By sadhana, the psychic being can be more and more brought forward. Now we are moving into a section which essentially there are several passages that talk about the psychic coming
sir,
to the front.
excuse me. If I am not interpret you, then can I ask you one question, please?
Can we do the questions towards the end, because we have a lot of material to cover? We will take questions at the end.
Okay, done.
Thank you. So now this section comes to there is a section of psychic coming to the front where there is a struggle between Prakriti and psychic. Then there is another section called decisive emergence, when the psychic breaks out of that veil. Then once it breaks out, it starts doing a conversion of the nature. That is the section on spiritual and inner conversion. And then there is the bhakti of various kinds: mental bhakti, vital bhakti, psychic bhakti. So these are all the sections we will take up now. So now we do this psychic coming to the front, because that is the theme that we have come to now. It needs some kind of yoga or sadhana to come by its own, its presence directly to be felt, filling the frontal consciousness. So how is the psychic being coming forward? This is how it is coming forward. We need to do yoga or sadhana for the psychic to come forward. And what does it do when it comes forward? It fills the frontal consciousness. Frontal consciousness, we talked about it: outer nature, inner nature, outer being, inner being, and inmost being. So he's talking of the outer nature. And what happens there? It is the psychic being is no longer dependent or dominated by its instruments. The instruments of mind, vital, and body. What does mind, vital, and body means? Basically, it means that our normal thought patterns. Each of us have very structured thought patterns. If you take 20 years, our thought patterns don't change much. Our swabhava. Now the psychic being is going to change our swabhava once it comes forward. And it has to mold them. It's a beautiful phrase Sri Aurobindo uses here. Molding them into luminosity. Luminosity is light, higher light. In these thought patterns, in these ups and downs, in this happiness and sorrow, desires, in all of that, the divine light is entering. And it is teaching them their true action. By coming forward is meant that it comes from behind the veil. Its presence is felt already in the waking daily consciousness. Its influence fills, dominates, transforms mind and their vital movements, even the physical. One is aware of one's soul, feels the psychic to be its true being. The mind and the rest begin to be only instruments of the inmost within us. You're getting the picture. Slowly, psychic being is, when it is coming to the front, it is transforming our mind and vital movements. And it dominates them. How? For example, something happens and our instinctive reaction is to do this. But you know that it is a gray area action. It is not completely wrong, but it is not completely right. What does the psychic being do? It gives us a warning. No, this is not in according to the highest truth of your soul. Don't do it. Somebody does injustice to you. A natural reaction would be to do something that will compensate for that injustice. And that action may come from a lower sphere. Then the psychic being will say, no, don't do that. There are restless thoughts throughout the day. You realize it. You say, this is not conducive to the psychic being's work or for my spiritual growth. You know what you have to do when you have a lot of restless thoughts. You are supposed to shut down and go inside and establish calm and peace and stability, stillness. We don't do that normally. We don't even become aware of the thoughts. When the psychic being comes forward, we are prodded to sit quietly for some time. Many such attributes keep coming. You begin to have a certain detachment to the people and circumstances around you and become a witness, Sakshi Purusha. Another passage, psychic coming to the front. When that happens, one is aware of the psychic being with its simple, spontaneous self-giving and feels its increasing direct control over mind and vital and physical. Look at this word, spontaneous self-giving. There is not too much of calculation in life. There is not too much of planning in the sense that if somebody does like this, I will do like this. If this doesn't work out, I will do that. This is my plan A, this is my plan B, this is my plan C. I will see how. When the psychic being comes forward, there is an increasing reliance on the divine. We rely more and more on the divine. We surrender more and more to the divine. So there is a spontaneous self-giving. If there is too much of mental mixture, we calm down and we let go of that mental mixture, because that is the Prakriti asserting itself. And the Purusha is saying, no, I won't allow you to control me anymore. I have a direct connection to the divine. These are all ways that the psychic comes to the front. When the psychic being gets in the front and becomes master, there comes in fundamentally smooth action. You see this? Fundamentally smooth action. When we live in our ego, many times it feels like we are swimming in the river of life against the current. नदी के प्रवाह जो है उसके विपरीत जा रहे हैं, because this is the ego. But when we work with the psychic being, we just lay down in the water and let the mother and the universal energy carry us. So there is a fundamentally smooth action. And although there are difficulties, these are no longer of a dramatic or abrupt character. See, coming to psychic awareness or psychic coming to the front doesn't mean the difficulties will disappear. It is that our attitude towards the difficulties will readjust. Vasanti ji, about whom I spoke to you earlier, she once said, when you come to a guru, it is not that your difficulties will disappear, but when the storms come, you know it is your guru who is holding the rudder of your boat. So you go through it. And as the psychic comes more and more forward, the sadhana becomes easy. Because when we stay with mental, vital, and ego, what happens is they are subjected to duality. I like this, I don't like this. Today I meditate, tomorrow I don't meditate. When the psychic is in the front, the sadhana becomes natural and easy. And it is only a question of time and development, and natural development. When the mind or the vital or the physical consciousness is on the top, then the sadhana is a tapasya and a struggle. You see this? When the physical, vital, mental, and ego are dominating, some days you feel like it, some days you don't feel like it. You do it for 2 months and you forget for 4 months. This is what happens to all of us. The other day I was listening to one Swamiji from the traditional path. He said, if you want a God realization, आप एक साधना लो और 12 साल वो साधना करो. Take up one sadhana, japa hoga, puja hoga. For example, in Rajarajeshwari Puja, there is a Navavaran Puja where Devi ka avahan kiya jata hai. That puja takes 1.5 hours. And there are people who do it like that 1.5 hours per day for 10 years. Guys, let us understand. Sadhana is sadhana. It is a commitment. We have two choices. We can say, okay, I will lead my life the way everybody does, except I am better because I spend 1 hour or 2 hours with the mother. What is the objective of my life? I should be happy and healthy and peaceful. My husband should be happy and healthy and peaceful. My son should get a good job. My daughter-in-law should be a good girl. And my grandchildren should be healthy and study well. And I will spend a little bit of time on my spiritual work also. This is one choice. The other choice is, the only thing that matters in life is whether I am able to get in contact with my soul in this life or whether I am not going to get in contact with my soul. I don't care about anything else that happens. I will do my duty, but beyond that, it is all drama. I have to find my soul. This is the purpose of my life. We have to choose what is our path. If we choose that path, and we are able to say that finding my soul is why I am born, pata nahi, next birth, whether I'll even remember God or whether I'll even get a guru, I will finish it in this life. Then we have to focus on the deeper sadhana. And when we move away from ego and surrender and go more and more to the psychic, to that extent, our life becomes easy. Our attitude towards life becomes smooth. So this is the section on psychic coming to the front. Then, when that happens, there is a decisive emergence. Sri Aurobindo uses this phrase a couple of places. A couple of places in this chapter. When there is the decisive emergence means completely, strongly in the front. The soul has developed its strength and it is coming to the front. When there is the decisive emergence, one sign of it is the status or action in us of an inherent, intrinsic, self-existent consciousness which knows itself by the mere fact of being. Now, this is a bit of a heavy sentence, but also this is the sentence we will use for our meditation today. What is he saying here? He says, we know ourselves when the soul comes forward. How do we know? What do we know? Inherent, intrinsic, self-existent consciousness. I exist. This is the message. I know that I exist. And I know that I am the true existence in this body. मैं चेतना हूं, इस शरीर को चलाने वाली चेतना मैं हूं, और our identity moves to that chetna, our identity goes to that consciousness instead of the physical, vital, mental, body and ego. Okay. There is then evidently a spiritual consciousness. We will become a spiritual consciousness which is other than the mental. And it testifies to the existence of a spiritual being in us, which is other than our surface mental personality. Separating our identity from physical, vital, and mental and moving it to a spiritual consciousness. That is what he's saying is the decisive emergence. As the inner evolution, another paragraph, as the inner evolution proceeds, there can be a decisive emergence in which the being separates itself from thought and sees itself in an inner silence as the spirit in the mind. He says that the spiritual being, it separates itself from the thoughts, and in an inner silence, it can remain without identifying with the thoughts. Similarly, it can separate itself from life movements, desires, sensations, kinetic impulses, all the normal feelings that we have. It allows us to separate itself. That spiritual consciousness is able to separate itself and become a witness to the emotions as a spirit supporting life. And similarly, it separates itself from the body sense and knows itself as a spirit ensouling the matter. So what is it doing? It identifies itself as a consciousness. In inner silence, it observes the mind. It is separated from life energy and it is supporting the life energy. It is a spirit that is supporting this matter, ensouling the matter. This spiritual consciousness still depends on the body, mind, and thought and energy, the pranamaya. For action, it may still depend on mental, vital, and bodily instruments, or it may allow them to act according to their nature. But it may also exercise authority, governance, influence, influence on thought, life movement, physical action, and a purifying, uplifting consciousness. The psychic being, when it makes a decisive emergence, it begins taking up all our normal emotions and thoughts and infuses divine light in it and elevates them, simplifies them, purifies them. This is the decisive emergence, when we are able to do it, not when we think we know how to do it. Please understand the difference. Don't confuse familiarity with realization. We know now, based on this decisive emergence, that once the soul comes forward, the mind and emotions and body are uplifted. Rajoguna, tamoguna, in sab se upar uthte hain. We become more sattva guna. Dvandvatit banne ki koshish karte hain. All of this is the emergence of the Sakshi Purusha. We all know this. We've all read Bhagavad Gita. We've all read Upanishads. We've all heard so many pravachans. But this is how the soul purifies the physical, vital, mental. This is how there are two movements towards the soul. Antaratma को जागृत करने के लिए दो रास्ते हैं. एक रास्ता बाहर से अंदर जाता है. It goes from outside to inside. We did this in the meditation. We saw last time's meditation. If you don't remember it, please go back to the previous talk. We talk about going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. The other part is this, which we are talking about today, bringing forward the psychic being. The light of consciousness is inside of us, but it is not able to penetrate the thick veil of our emotions and thoughts. And here, I'm reading passage after passage. The essence of all of this is only one thing. The divine light, the divine guidance has to penetrate and come out. And for that, we have to change the way we think. We have to change the way we feel. We have to let go of our insecurities. We have to let go of what all we are holding on to very tightly, whether it is money, whether it is business, whether it is people, whether it is ego. Whatever we are holding on to, unko chhodna padega. If we don't leave this, we can't let the psychic light come out. So this is our sadhana. And that is what both this bringing forward the psychic and the decisive emergence, both of these are referring to the same theme. When this happens, when this psychic being comes forward and begins to change the nature, then there is a spiritual conversion. or inner conversion. These are the terms that Sri Aurobindo and Mother use. When it is awake, it begins to take hold of the rest of the being, to influence it and change it, so that all may become the true expression of the inner soul. It is this change that is called the inner conversion. Swabhava has to change, and the movements that are so natural to us have to be purified. They have to be sublimated. In Hindi, rang mein rang jana bolte hain, rang mein rangna bolte hain. There are beautiful Sufi compositions on that. Our consciousness, our day-to-day consciousness becomes suffused with the light of the divine. That is the inner conversion. Another word, the spiritual conversion begins when the soul begins to insist on a deeper life, and is complete when the psychic being becomes the leader of our consciousness, and mind and vital and body are led by it and obey it. See, Mother and Sri Aurobindo are saying this thing that I talked about, how we lead our life. I want to have a very good, comfortable life, and spirituality is one part of it. Or I want to lead a spiritual life. If I don't realize my soul in this life, God knows whether I will realize it in next life. This is when our spiritual conversion begins. Spiritual conversion begins when the soul begins to insist on a deeper life. Nothing else matters. I have a friend of mine, probably around 64, maybe 64, yeah, mid 60s. He was a businessman, and after he entered into his 50s, he made a resolution. He's a businessman, lot of pressure on him. Every day, he gets up at 3:30. Every day. I'm not saying all of you have to get up at 3:30. I'm giving it as an example of how one makes a priority. He has children, grandchildren, he goes to visit them, they come to visit him. But many times I see him send a spiritual message at 3:45 or 4 in the morning. He has a close group of us whom he really wants to, push us to make more effort and to inspire us. He shares beautiful messages when he gets up in that Brahma Muhurat, before he sits for his meditations. This is the commitment we have to make. And if we start when we are 75, it may not work. Now is the time to start. Then there are two other sections which I will slightly cover. These are questions from the same chapter about coming to the front of the psychic being. The signs of psychic being coming forward. A central love, bhakti, surrender, giving everything. A sight within that sees always clearly what is spiritually right or wrong, and automatically rejects what is wrong. A movement of entire consecration and dedication of all in one to the Mother. A central love, bhakti, surrender, giving everything, and a conscience, a sight within that always sees clearly what is spiritually right, what is spiritually wrong. It can be as simple as this. किसी friend के बेटे का शादी है. शादी में गया तो पता है it will be 11 o'clock when you come back from a marriage from the wedding of a friend or relative. When you come back at 11 o'clock, you know your morning meditation will not happen. What is spiritually the right thing and wrong thing to do? We all know. But what do we do? When the psychic being comes in the front, there is an automatic perception of true and untrue, the divine and the undivine, the spiritual right and wrong of things, and the false vital and mental movements and attacks are immediately exposed, and they fall away, they can do nothing. Gradually, the vital and physical as well as the mind get the full psychic light and truth and the feeling of purity and that sound feeling and purity. So these are signs, or these are the changes we need to make in ourselves. A childlike simplicity can come. Then one other thing I promised we will try to touch today before we go to the meditation side. In this chapter, Sri Aurobindo talks about various kinds of bhakti. I want to share something personal here. See, many of us have read many works of Sri Aurobindo and Mother many times. But each time what touches us depends on the stage of our evolution. After being with Mother and Sri Aurobindo almost after 2 or 2.5 decades, once when I was reading, I think, letters on yoga, Sri Aurobindo had this very small letter that talked about mental bhakti and psychic bhakti. And that small letter almost made me sit up in a shock, because I felt that in spite of being with Mother and Sri Aurobindo for many years, my bhakti wasn't yet psychic bhakti. I knew Mother and Sri Aurobindo, I prayed to them, I would read prayers and meditations, I would follow their teachings to the extent possible, but 90% of the effort was centered around the mind, it wasn't centered around the psyche. This is something we all have to examine. What is my bhakti centered around? Is it genuinely centered around the soul? Am I offering myself in devotion from the deepest layer of my being? Or is most of my devotion and work with the Mother centered around my thoughts? And this is a journey that each of us has to make very carefully and consciously. So I'll go to what Sri Aurobindo says in this chapter, Sri Aurobindo's and Mother's quotes from this chapter. In the mind, one may have admiration or appreciation for the intellectual greatness of the Guru, but it is merely mental. There are other things, his greatest philosopher, greatest visionary. Oh, Mother, these sentences are so beautiful. They evoke my devotion towards Mother. All of this is okay. But by itself, it does not open the whole inner being. It only establishes a mental contact. Observe this description. It only establishes a mental contact. You can have bhakti, but you can have bhakti through only a mental contact. But when you are having a bhakti with mental contact, what is the state of your mind? The unillumined mind that is surrendering to the truth. But it makes its own conditions, its own distortions and all of that. So we have to examine our bhakti. Then the vital bhakti, it imposes its own conditions. It surrenders itself to God, but conditionally. You can call this quid pro quo bhakti. Quid pro quo means I do this for you, you do that for me. Or it is a bhakti that becomes very intense when there are difficulties. Many people have seen this. When real problems come, the bhakti goes up tremendously. When life is smoothly, everything is happy. We don't have to worry about it. Then also there is bhakti, but no intensity. The vital being pulls at the higher power and pulls at the vital being of the Guru also. Mother, I want good education for my son. Mother, I want good marriage for my daughter. Mother, I want good career for my son. Mother, I want a healthy grandchild. Mother, I want this. Keep on pulling. Bhakti is there. But this is the bhakti. Out of 100 times, 90 times it is pulling them for what we need. 10 times we say we are devotees, we are very sincere. Then comes the psychic bhakti. The psychic bhakti, the psychic being and its bhakti are not like that. Because it is in direct communication with the divinity behind, it is capable of true bhakti. Psychic bhakti does not make any demand, it makes no reservation. It is satisfied with its own existence, it is content. The psychic being knows how to obey the truth in the right way. It gives itself up truly to God or to the Guru. And because it can give itself up truly, therefore, it can also receive truly. Surrender, what we started our first paragraph with. Surrender and consecration, it is coming here. When awakened, the psychic being gives true bhakti for God or for the Guru. This bhakti is very different from mental or vital bhakti. The psychic being says, I don't want any of these things. What am I here for after all? I am here for the truth. I am not here for any of these things. So we say, I don't want this circus. I am tired of this circus. I will do what I need to do, but I will focus on my self-realization in this life. So this is the difference between psychic bhakti and mental bhakti and vital bhakti. I could only spend 5 minutes on it, but I request you to look up the teachings of Mother and Sri Aurobindo on this subject and try to deepen a little bit on this particular talk, on this particular theme. So this is the subject matter that we had for today. I tried to cover it in a meaningful way, in a sequenced way. What we can do now, it is 7 minutes past 8. We will try to take up a meditation till about 8:30. Kindly do the preliminary work, which is keep your cell phones away from you. Not only that, if you can probably turn it off or keep it on silent or keep it in another room, that is better. You may want to turn off the lights in the room or turn away from the computer monitor that you're staring at so that you're more conducive to going inside. If you need to close the door or window or something, you can do that. Try to sit comfortably so that you can sit for at least 20 minutes. Right now, since we have gone through this for the last almost an hour, I request you to perhaps stretch yourself a little bit. Rotate your head gently. Stretch it to the back. Stretch it to the front. Slowly, please. Gently to the right. Gently to the left. Similarly, the shoulders accumulate a lot of stress. We can rotate the shoulders and maybe stretch a little bit to the back. Broaden the shoulders a bit so that the chest cavity expands. If your palms and fingers have been static and you need to just stretch them a little bit and crunch them. Similarly, your feet, ankles and toes if you need to, because this helps in the free flow of energies in the body. Otherwise, the energies tend to get accumulated and there are blockages. So we are just opening the different channels and trying to let the energy flows happen. Now, slowly get into your preferred meditation posture. If you're sitting on a chair, your feet can be flat on the ground, but preferably for future reference, I have mentioned it before also, don't keep your feet directly on the ground. It's always a good idea to have a cloth or something, say maybe your footwear or something. Don't get up now, but for future. Then, of course, we are still working on the posture, by the way. This is all the preliminaries. Now stretch your shoulder blades a little bit back and make the spine erect. And pull your body a little bit on the straight to the higher level. Let the spine stretch a bit. And now settle into a posture which you can hold for 20 minutes. Feet firmly on the ground if you're in a chair, and palms facing the sky on your thighs. What you do is now slowly deepen your breathing. Feel the breath go from the nostril to almost the navel. When you take a deep breath, please remember there are three portions of the body the breath should feel and fill. The abdomen should be full and it should feel like a pot. The chest and the lungs should also be full. So when you're breathing, you should almost feel the expansion touch the armpits area also. That is how much breath we can normally hold. The front and back also, you should be able to feel the energy flows and the breath flows. This is the second portion. When you completely fill your system, you can fill the breath right up to the Adam's apple region of the neck. So when you're doing deep breathing, fill all these three regions slowly. If your mind is drifting, please bring it to the third eye. If you are a regular practitioner of Bhastrika or any such strong pranayam techniques, you can also hold your breath for a little bit. But if you are not in the habit of doing so, or if you have any other health condition of hypertension, blood pressure, these kind of things, don't hold your breath, please. Repeat this breathing pattern of inhale, hold if you are capable of doing so, and exhale. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. Inhale deeply, exhale slowly. Feel the breath move out of your nostrils slowly. Keep your attention at the center of the eyebrows and invoke the Mother's presence to guide us through this meditation. Open us to these experiences. Keep your mind silent as far as possible. I will read a few sentences. You can just listen to it while you're doing your breathing. As the inner evolution proceeds, there can be a decisive emergence in which The being separates itself from thought and sees itself in an inner silence as the spirit in mind. The being separates itself from thought and sees itself in an inner silence as the spirit in the mind. When there is a complete silence in the being, either a stillness of the whole being or a stillness behind, unaffected by surface movements, then we can become aware of a self, a spiritual substance of our being. When there is a complete silence in the being, stillness behind, unaffected by surface movements, then we can become aware of the self. Let us try to bring this stillness into us today. Let us try to experience this silence of the being today. Continue a couple of more cycles of deep breathing at your own pace. Inhale and exhale, or inhale, hold, exhale, hold, whatever is your rhythm. In your being, bring the thought, I am. Am. I exist. Am. I exist. Am. I exist. Feel that. Feel the vibration of I am. I am. Feel that I. Not able to feel it yet, increase the intensity of I am. Try to go into that feeling of I exist, I am. Experience it. Experience this inner being of I through I am. It is no longer a thought, it is actually an experience. You're not thinking I am, you are feeling who you are. I am, I exist. Feel that existence. When you intensify the I am, your entire being is automatically silent. Observe that silence and observe the I am experience. Stay with the I am experience. Don't mentalize why you are silent. If any thoughts come, just remain a witness in the I am state and let go of that thought. Just observe the thoughts, observe the location of those thoughts, but also observe that you are the observer. You know the thought is playing in this region somewhere around the forehead. And you are the I am that is aware of that thought. You are not the thought. Am. I exist. If you are drifting away, take another cycle of breathing. And while breathing, remain in the I am state and observe the body breathing. Remain in the I am state and observe the region from above the top of your head by a few inches till your shoulders. Remain as I am and observe the silence there. Thoughts are dragging you, go back to the breath. But while breathing, also remain in the I am state. Observe and enjoy this silence that is inside of you, that is natural to you. It is with you always. I am. Remain in that experience of I am and observe the silence now from the top of the head to your waist. This entire region is silent. And you are the witness to this silence. I am, I exist. Go back to that vibration and observe the silence. Now extend that silence to the feet, from the top of the head to your sahasrara, 2 inches above the head, to the bottom of your feet. If you're just scan, remain with I am, but feel the silence that exists in and around you. Stay with I am, I exist. That vibration, that awareness. It is not a thought, it is an experience of I am. That is your spiritual being. That is the Purusha. Increase the intensity of I am again. Feel it, become it. Identify with it by increasing its intensity and frequency. Say it more often and say it with more intensity, but no disturbance, only an assertion. The mind is not active, does not need to be active. Or drifting away in thoughts, go back to the breath, observe the body again, observe the silence again. Slowly expand your awareness to the entire room that you are sitting in, and yet remain in the I am state. Be aware of the entire room. Be aware of the body inside the room, and yet be aware of the I am state. Keep staying with the I am experience while being aware of this whole region and the body sitting inside that region. Am is not the body. The I am experience is the self, and that self is aware of the body. Am I? I am. Aham asmi. Aham asmi is the pillar around which the body, the society, the emotions, the thoughts, everything revolves. The essence, the central pillar of existence is I am. It is the real witness. It is the secret witness. I am. Become aware of the entire room. Become aware of the body sitting in the room. Become one with the experience of I am. Know that you are separate from everything else. I am. I exist. I exist. I am this awareness. I am the awareness that is aware of the body. I am the awareness that is aware of the silence in the body. I am the awareness that is aware of the room and surroundings. I am the awareness that is aware of the silence that surrounds me in the room. I am the awareness that is aware of the silence within the body. I am. Slowly come back to the breath. Last time, remain as I am. And while we come out of the meditation, stay with the feeling and experience of I am. Don't let go of it when you come to your outer consciousness. Take a few deep breaths. Become aware of the place where the body is touching the floor or the cushion or the chair. Become aware of those regions. And while you become aware, remain as I am. Slowly, you can move the extremities of your body, maybe the toes, maybe the fingers, palms. Slightly adjust your body while remaining in the I am state. Maybe you may need to move your head because the neck muscles have become stiff. Stretch your shoulders. Take another deep breath. Now, in this state, go back to the I am experience. Identify with the I am, I exist, the I. When you open your eyes tonight, don't open it all at once. Only open it maybe 20%. And then later 40, later fully. But while you go through that slow opening and again close fully, while you do that, remain with the I am experience. Open your eyes slightly and keeping them open, feel that I am, I exist. That is a separate existence. You can open 20%, repeat that I am experience, and again close your eyes. And dwell in that I am experience for some more time. Come back again, open the eyes slightly more and try to keep your hook in that experience. And slowly, progressively, open your eyes, readjust to the outside, and while you look through your eyes, retain the I am experience. Some of you may feel that you are like inside a room and seeing the world outside through the window. It is as if you're looking through the window of the eyes and the eye is remaining behind. Slowly, fully readjust your eyes. If you need to touch your face, if that is your practice, you may do so. If you want to rub your palms, you may do so, but do so gently, not too noisy or not too agitated. Take a deep breath. Remain with the I am as long as possible. And this is a practice that you can do. If some of you may already have this experience, it may be a part of who you are. For some of you, this may be new. Try to go back to the I am and come out into the real world. This is the witness consciousness, Sakshi Bhava. This I am is an experience of peace, bliss, silence, light, all of these higher forces and energies. So, with that, we conclude the meditation with gratitude to the Mother. May she guide us through this experience, may she deepen this experience, and may she help us arrive at the state of consciousness where we are the witness to our entire being, and our consciousness moves into the spiritual being from the surface being.
Thank you so
So,
much, Srinivas Garu.
thank you, Ande.
Oh,
If anyone
it was
has
a very
questions.
nice meditation. It was a good meditation.
Thank you, Shakuntalaji. I'm glad you were able to stay with it. Any other questions, comments?
Someone had a question in the middle. Was that Shakuntalaji or?
No, I was having the question, but in meditation and in I practiced only, I got my answer. Sakshi Bhav, for that only I was little. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. I still want to know that if still more easy example, if he can help us, because
Go ahead. Go
in
ahead.
a whole day time, it's not that easy. I have tried because I'm a very great fan of Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita is all time tell all about this only. So, but still, it's really very difficult. But this meditation, I think it will help us because today I felt that. So, let's pray that we can all do more and more with the same feeling so that will after meditation it becomes, it's the everything becomes so silent. I can't question. So
Thank you.
But it
Thank you,
was
Shamballa.
really very beautiful experience. Thank you
Glad.
so much, Mother Grace, really.
Actually, you're right. After meditation, we don't really feel like speaking much.
Yeah, yeah. Almost, like don't want to say anything. It's become
Correct. So, if anyone else has questions, or someone has a question, Soumya ji.
Namaste, sir. It was
Go
I
ahead.
just
Go ahead,
have
Soumya.
this
We can
small
hear you.
doubt. I just have this doubt, like, what is the difference between tamas and laziness and bhakti saying, okay, um, mother will do everything or mother will take care of it. Where does dynamism or uh, act, being active fit in over there?
So, good point. These are the questions that come when we are trying to practice what we read. So that is a good thing. The idea is that at the moment, most of us are not guided by the psychic and the divine guidance 100% of the time. We always have the doubt what is to be done, how it is to be done, and so on. And we have our role to play in life. So the approach is that on one side, we have to fulfill our role and fulfill our work, whether it is sadhana, whether it is job, whether it is raising a family. All of that we have to put in our best foot forward. We should think with the mind that is given to us because that is the best instrument we have as of today. Sometimes I hear this criticism of people saying that no, that person, he's too analytical. This person is too mentalized. These are very good labels to give to people, but truly, how many of us are completely psychicized to be able to say that, yes, I know exactly what my soul is guiding me as? So, in the absence of soul's guidance, direct perception of the truth, direct inner contact, undoubted inner contact with the mother, our best instruments to guide us in life are our mind and our emotions and our body. In that, we make the best use of our capacities of understanding and try to navigate through life while taking decisions. At the same time, the difference between a spiritual person and others is the other person, he works, once he is convinced a particular direction is correct, he insists with all his vital energy and ego to achieve that purpose and in that direction, even if there are other obstacles along the way. The spiritual person, he will try to do his best. At the same time, he will give adequate space for other things to happen because he or she knows that the divine will may be something else. So one of the things we say is don't be 100% sure, only be 90% sure. And the rest 10%, let the divine guide you through other people around you, through change of circumstances, through unexpectedly what you think should happen within a period of time doesn't happen. So trying to continue to do our effort with best capacity and a deep prayer. This is how we are supposed to take forward. That is not in contradiction to mother will do it. Mother will do it through us and through the circumstances in this way.
Thank you, sir.
There are a couple of questions that had come in the group during the course of this last 10 days. I apologize due to the time constraints I had. I could not answer, but I'll just quickly touch upon them. One is, what does it mean to organize the consciousness? So we talked about it extensively today. Organizing the consciousness around the psychic center is organizing our mind our mental faculties, our thoughts around the divine guidance. We talked about it. Similarly, organizing our emotions, all of that vital aspect of us, refining it, purifying it, and taking the guidance as to what is right and wrong and executing what is right. So, this is organizing the consciousness. We don't, in other words, the other side of it is we don't justify what we do constantly. So, the other thing is, how do I deal with family life and social life and all of that? How do I organize it around the psychic center? Should I slowly withdraw from all these interactions? Or while physically being in the world, always in a silent contact and connect with the psychic being? So, should I withdraw or should I engage? The path of Sri Aurobindo emphasizes engagement with the world, not withdrawal from the world. But at the same time, we should remember that many of the people that we are living in cities and families and all of these things, when we say withdraw from the world, it doesn't mean that we are talking about running away to Himalayas. There should be a partial withdrawal. हर फैमिली फंक्शन को जाने की जरूरत नहीं है, हर सोशल ऑब्लिगेशन को फुलफिल करने की जरूरत नहीं है. Remaining a little bit detached and avoiding a lot of these things, because many of us have this experience. When we go to a large public gathering, there is a lot of energy mixture that surely reflects in the next day's meditation and sometimes for another 4 or 5 days. So to some extent, we do what we absolutely have to do, but we don't go into all the obligations. And whatever are absolutely required, we do that. And when we do that with an inner detachment. We do that with a higher light. We do that to the extent possible, even if the other person does or does not understand us. So attached detachment. We remain in the world, but with a certain element of detachment. In Telugu, Tamaraku Mida Neetibottu, that is a very favorite example that people give. It is like that water drop on a lotus leaf. It is not entangled in any way. So these are the answers to the questions raised in the group.
Anyone else has any questions? I think that's it. Srinivas Garu, thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for being patient, and these are long sessions, but I'm glad that we are able to come together. Hopefully 1 or 2 more sessions we will be concluding this series.
Okay. Anyone has any more questions, please do post them in the group. Thank you all for attending.